please join me on June the 12th at the AIA conference in San Diego, where I'll be presenting on real-time ArchViz and rendering for architects. Come and discover how Maxon's Redshift and Vectorworks are transforming real-time rendering workflows, where architects can communicate ideas faster than ever using immersive experiences like never before. So whether you're looking to enhance your client presentations or accelerate design review, please come along to this session and you'll find immediately how you can benefit from real-time ray tracing in your design software. I look forward to seeing you there at the Nemetschek and Maxon booth 2742 on Thursday and Friday, June the 11th and June the 12th. See you there. Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to run through with you a presentation that I'm due to deliver in San Diego at the AIA in the next week or so at a conference. I thought it'd be fun to practice my rehearsal and share with my members on the channel this exciting new presentation on real-time Arch Viz and rendering for architects. So a couple of key slides that I'll be showing, and basically let's just whiz through the acknowledgements. So introducing myself first of all, for those who don't know me, I'm Jonathan Reeves. I'm an architect by background. The idea of this course, this lecture if you like, is to help you understand the benefits of real-time rendering in the architectural design process. We're also going to learn how we can move effortlessly from real-time rendering previews with cinematic quality using Redshift for architectural visualization, particularly focusing on Vectorworks in this particular talk. So I've got a few contact details. If you're interested, reach out to me on email or any of my YouTube social channels. And of course, you can take a look at my websites too. So, as I say, I'm an architect practicing architect in the UK with over 25 years experience. As well as during that time, I've also written a couple of books, so I like to claim that I'm an author as well. I've written one on Vectorworks BIM and one on real-time rendering back in 2020. I've also got a popular YouTube channel with lots of content for you, so if you haven't checked this out, please take a look already. I've got over 34,000 subscribers now, and basically well over 550 videos for you. Now, I'll just talk a few minutes about my ArchViz journey because I think it's good to set a bit of context of where I've been working in the industry. So basically, my journey started back at Sheffield University doing my master's degree in architecture and computing. I won't say exactly the date, but it was quite a long time ago, back in the 90s. Now you can see here was one of my first ever rendering done in Stratavision. And believe it or not, this render took 72 hours for a 640 by 480 small pixelated image. But overall, I was super happy with the quality of those lovely reflections and, well, global illumination potentially, even though this was over 25 years ago. I also did an award-winning project for the VLUX design competition, and this blended basically Vectorworks 2D with some nice sort of 3D visualization using a program called Atlantis, which you may have heard of. And that was really the first sort of real-time I'd come across with real-time ray tracing. Although I'm not sure it was kind of proper ray tracing, it looked pretty good back in the day. Now I moved forward a bit. I worked on some really interesting schemes for the Millennium Dome Legacy project. And this was really just a 2D drawing, but I did actually model up the Vectorworks Millennium Dome and render this using Vectorworks 2. Now here we move forward a bit, you can see I was basically using Cinema 4D by about 2005, which of course is a Maxon product, as is Redshift. And I think you can see a big improvement in the quality of the renders I was able to produce at the time. These did take a long time, and I do recall remembering re-rendering these multiple times in order to get the effect I wanted. And of course, quite a lot of Photoshop work just to kind of montage the building. Now let's fast forward to 2003. I worked on a big master plan, and this was a Cinema 4D render using global illumination and nothing else, just with a nice sort of white card model for a proposal next to Canary Wharf, you can see in the blue, and it was called Woods Wharf. Now, the reason I want to show you this is how this sort of has leapt on in the last couple of years. So basically, this little sequence of images takes that particular model, which I then updated over on the left using Twinmotion a few years ago. Here you can see really recently, I've been using AI, experimenting quite a lot with, and basically using so much more detail using the AI image generation, but preserving the geometry of my original intention and image. Now watch carefully on the image on the right. Of course, with AI now, we can also begin to things like animate the camera and show people moving around. So this is something that I'm quite excited about and I'm really exploring in my workflows. And that has a big impact on, what we're going to do in the future with 3D. Okay, so back to real-time rendering and ArchViz. So basically talking about Redshift for Vectorworks, which is something I've been quite involved with from the beginning, I really want to just highlight some of the main features that really kind of come across with real-time rendering and ArchViz. So obviously real-time rendering means fast design iteration. Being able to kind of render using cinematic quality, using Redshift, is an absolute dream come true for Vectorworks users. And now we've got some exciting news. This will be coming to some other platforms soon. So you'll have to wait until the conference to find out what that will be with the big reveal. We've also got some native plugins for Vectorworks. So it just really sits on the side, very much like a plugin for Vectorworks rather than a separate application. Vectorworks is the host application where you still do the design work, and Redshift is where you do the rendering, add assets and modify things like lighting. We've also got an amazing cross-platform support, which is a really nice feature. So Mac and Windows, both for Vectorworks and for Redshift too. Now Maxon have an incredible asset library of ever-expanding, smart and beautiful materials and wonderful assets. Things like trees, furniture, cars, all the kind of things you need to prop out your models. And finally, one of the really important features for me is the integration of things like site and landscape and kind of context. So things like wonderful trees, grass, flowers, just being able to set the building into that wonderful context too. So here's a nice little video that I prepared as part of my kind of beta testing and involvement with Redshift for Vectorworks during the release and the launch. And you can see this is a beautiful model of the Dover Dam project, actually. It's one of Vectorworks' standard projects. And this is really brought to life using Redshift. And you can see all that incredible detail, things like global illumination, accurate reflections, and just lots of really beautiful lighting, the way the light bounces around the scene. Here you can see a little video where it takes it a little bit further. So just to make the point, if you do want to go off to do things like animation, we've got a wonderful connection from Vectorworks to Redshift over to Cinema 4D. So I'll just play this video and then we'll get back to the slideshow.
Introducing a new real-time rendering solution built for architects and interior designers, created by Maxon. Seamlessly integrated with your existing CAD and BIM workflows, including Vectorworks, Revit, and ArchiCAD, coming in 2026 with even more integrations on the way. Move effortlessly from real-time previews to cinematic quality renders. Cinema-grade visuals for ArchViz, powered by Maxon's Oscar-winning tools. With full cross-platform support for both Mac and Windows. Create smooth, intuitive camera animations, perfect for fly-throughs, walkthroughs, and final presentations. Design complete environments with ease. Add trees, bushes, and grass to bring your landscapes to life. Take full control of lighting and atmosphere. Set the time of day, adjust the weather, and shape clouds in just a few clicks. Access an ever-expanding smart asset library with materials, textures, and objects designed to elevate every project. From first preview to final render, experience a seamless end-to-end workflow. And when you're ready to go further, send your scene directly to Cinema 4D for advanced lighting, motion, and simulation. Maxon Redshift. Architecture elevated.
Wow. That's the beauty of Vectorworks to Redshift and then potentially Cinema 4D for things like animations as well, and bringing it to life with, moving water, animated cars, people, that kind of thing. Excellent. Right. So I want to keep the main focus of this talk on a eco-home project that I developed. And I want to do a live demonstration of Redshift with Vectorworks to show you how beneficial this was. So when I was doing this particular eco-home project, it's quite an interesting story. Basically, I used a visualization throughout the process. Now, I was only able to meet the client one time on site because of COVID. So we were very socially distanced and all of the kind of design iterations and communication was done via Zoom. So for me, using 3D rather than 2D drawings was a no-brainer. The time saved was incredible. It meant that doing 3D visualization with lots of different design options really kind of helped the client visualize the space and make comments much more rapidly. I was also gaining a lot of confidence in 3D and BIM through this process, so it was a hugely beneficial learning curve for me as well. But the main point was I didn't require a specialist visualizer. I was the visualizer, empowered by basically the software that I had at the time. So here you can see the site for the first iteration of the design, and I went in with a really nice earth-sheltered eco-home because the site had been rejected planning many times for a traditional two-storey building, believe it or not. You can see using these kind of slides here, I was able to kind of hide the building by digging it into the ground and having an earth shelter to the front of the site as well, while opening it up to the rear of the site where the best views were. I thought it would also be interesting to show you a couple of the renders that I did and basically how those renders have been transformed fairly recently using some AI techniques, which I'm very excited to explore. So AI is a wonderful tool if used in the right way, not to change the geometry or come up with a design or replace me as an architect, but basically just to try out different moods and different atmospheres and things like different seasons as well. And I think you'll agree, to be able to move from summer to spring to winter with a few very good prompts using AI is just a wonderful process. I've also done experimentation with doing some AI time-lapse, and this is quite satisfying. It sort of replicates the idea of sequencing or phasing of a project too. So I really enjoyed sort of playing around with this too. I would encourage you to have a go if you haven't tried this already. Now, let's jump in to the live demo of Redshift for Vectorworks. And I'd like to share with you my EcoHome project and show you how amazing this can look using Redshift with Vectorworks too. Okay, so here you can see I've now launched Vectorworks and opened up my EcoHome project. What I'm going to do is just quickly show you the first design iteration of this project and give you a little understanding. So the idea here was to try to hide the building as much as possible. And that was achieved really by basically sinking the building both into the ground, but also using an earth shelter as well. So I'm just using some save views in Vectorworks to navigate around the project, and I think you'll agree this will give you a fairly clear understanding of how the project works. Now, what happened was, in the course of the project, I actually submitted a planning application for this particular design using some 3D visualization techniques to do a really wonderful animation. And you actually can find that on my YouTube channel if you're interested. But what happened was the planner then came back and engaged with me and the clients and basically was keen to see if we could not have to submerge the building. And potentially, after some negotiation, I was able to basically negotiate to get a two-storey building, which the clients were much more pleased with because they had quite a big family and they wanted a bit more space. So you can see here was the actual two-storey building we finally did achieve planning permission for. So it just tells the story about how going in with a different design option, very well visualized and communicated, sometimes you can use that communication to actually kind of push a bit more and actually develop the design a bit more. Anyway, there's a bit of background on the project. I thought that would be of interest to you. Now here I'm using save views and you can see that I've got the Vectorworks trees, but also with this view, I've actually got some Redshift trees. So what I'm going to do is basically show you how we can launch Redshift and visualize this in super high quality. So all I need to do essentially is go to my Redshift button here. There's one little setting with some preferences. It just tells you your version and what level of quality you're looking for. Basically, all I need to do is click the play button. Now, over on my other screen, which you can't see right now, which I'll bring across in a moment, Redshift is essentially loading in the model. So what will happen is once that's visualized, it takes a few minutes to load like any of the real-time rendering software. I will be basically visualizing my model in a super high quality environment using real-time ray tracing. So I'm just kind of waiting for that to load up and I will bring that across. Basically, when you're in Vectorworks, those Redshift proxies, if you like, these rather simplistic looking blobs of trees, these don't take up much memory. What happens is they will translate across, let's bring my screen across now, over to Redshift. You can see we've just got a couple of active tasks while it loads in some of the geometry and some of the models and things. So what happens is those proxies translate over to fantastically accurate and detailed, beautiful models. One of the really nice things about Redshift as well is the asset library, and I will demonstrate that in a minute for you. Excellent. So you can see we're kind of loading the geometry in. Now, this can take a few minutes depending on the size of the project. And essentially what you'll notice is what I'm going to do is basically let's drag that across to that side of the screen. And let's take Vectorworks and just park it on that side. Now, a nice little trick if you're going to do this workflow, because you don't end up with too much space, is a little trick in Vectorworks where we can go to Window, Palettes, and Basic Palette Options, and we can hide those floating windows. Now they still come back when you need them. So here we can see Redshift is almost finished its loading process, and there we go, boom, what a fantastic, beautiful, high quality image we have. So if I rotate my model, you'll see that the two models are synced. Now at the moment I can see I've got a bit of conflict because I've got both the Redshift trees and I've also got the Vectorworks trees. So what I'm going to do is just pop into my layers and turn off the Vectorworks trees, and immediately you'll see over on the left side, at the right side, you'll see Redshift has now updated dynamically. So the first thing that we do have is this wonderful feature of direct syncing. And you can see the model syncs on the same screen. This would probably be a bit faster if I wasn't recording and using my kind of Zoom video to record this for you. But you get a very, very good impression of how the model looks. One of the other really nice aspects here is I can actually use the save views as I need to jump around the model. So what I'll do in a minute is I'll jump inside, but let's basically just navigate forward. To do this, I might just whiz over to the Redshift side, and here I'm just going to use the WASD keys. So this is the traditional W, A, S, and D keys, and you can see them here down on the display. So basically we can navigate, interact, look around with all the usual kind of quality. And you can also toggle at fly and basically drone mode with walk mode using the spacebar. So I think you'll agree, while I'm moving around, the quality is not quite as good, but as soon as you pause for a second, you'll notice the denoiser kicks in. So this is the denoiser. Essentially, basically, it takes the ray tracing and it really improves it. Now, there's two types of denoiser in Redshift. We've got the traditional one here, which makes it better as you're moving around. We've also got this one called the static denoiser as well. So basically, when you're moving around, if you want to, once the static denoiser kicks in, you can see at the moment I haven't got that turned on. But if I turn that on now, the static denoiser takes things to an even higher level. So depending on the computer you have, you can adjust the settings to get the most out of the hardware you actually do have available. Now, in here, we do have a few other settings, things like passes and trace depth, and you can play around with those to increase the performance as well. So basically, with lower numbers, you should get slightly better frame rates. You can see my frame rate is increasing as I've dropped the passes. So somewhere from 64 up to about 200 is a really good frame rate. If you want your final renders, you can go a bit higher than that. So what I might do is just hop over to full screen Redshift for a minute. And I'll just run through a couple of other aspects. So that was the viewport side of things. Now, if we go over to the navigation side, here you can adjust things like the speed, the sensitivity, and you can also, of course, increase or decrease your focal length. Now, one other really important factor is auto exposure, which we do have. So you can see at the moment the model is a bit blown out, probably because I've got some lights inside. So with auto exposure, that will really help the compensation of the exposure for your modeling. Now you can actually kind of increase or decrease this manually as well. So depending on the mood of the image you're trying to create, if you want something a little bit more overcast, you can easily do that. Now Redshift does actually have a really good set of more advanced capabilities. So if we click the little button there, show all attributes, you'll notice that down over here, we've now got a bit more control over things like vignetting as well. So those traditional sort of aspects, things like white point, balance, we can also do, I'm not going to do it now, but we can do orthogonal views. So it means you can render pure elevations or plans too. So those are the camera settings. There are some more over the FX side of things. So you've got the traditional LUTs. This is where you can load in sort of light basic files which adapt, things like Instagram filters, that sort of thing. We've also got color controls. So if I just open up those, you can see we've got some sliders here. So it makes it very easy for you to kind of adjust things like contrast, things like that as well. I think I'll just reset that now. So if you basically right click, you can copy and paste numbers in there. But if we just type 0 back in, I'll just turn that one off. We've also got things like bloom. Now I'll put that on in a minute when we get outside perhaps, or inside rather. It makes quite a nice difference to the brightness of the image inside. And then things like lens flares and streaks as well. Okay, so that's the navigation side and some of the more advanced settings there. And then finally, we have the view menu. Now the view menu enables you to very quickly capture views. So what I can do here is just sort of frame up my view a tiny bit more. Let's say I want to kind of come down a bit. Let's get a bit more down to eye level. That's rather a nice view. And basically, if I'm happy, I can click Create. So you notice that new view, view 6, has now been created. And I've also got some additional views here too. Now, we'll just move over to the Environment tab for a second, and I want to show you a couple of things here. So with the Environment tab, it just makes it incredibly easy to adjust your time of day. So as I adjust the time of day, just wait for that denoiser to kick in, and you'll notice that beautiful rendering on the light with the shadows. So I've got quite a few lights inside I can see, and that's why the brightness was quite high for the model. But if we go down to almost night mode, now you can see the building inside lighting up quite a lot. So this would probably be the time when I might take the exposure down a little bit perhaps. And potentially I might want to increase things like the night sky. So there's lots of nice control. We have all sorts of control over things like the direct lighting, the ambient lighting as well, using all these little sliders. So let's just up the ambience a little bit here. And what I think I'll also do is just increase, well, of course, there's no sun at this time. So let's sort of swing around to a slightly different time. So you should see the sun coming up in a minute. There we go. We go to that nice sort of sunrise. I'll just let that kick in with that lovely kind of light. One of the other things that I really like about Redshift for Vectorworks is the dynamic sky has wonderful clouds. So you can see that if I click onto the load button, I get some presets here. So let's just go back to a clear sky. So what I think I might do is just go back to my navigation here. Let's reset this back to 0 for the ambient brightness. I did a few other things, so let's see what else, other adjustments. But let's now load in. There we go, that sky's loading in very nicely. You can see the ray tracing is very progressive as well. Look at these lovely reflections, that beautiful lighting inside. Very, very nice. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just sort of slowly slide up the coverage of the cloud. And you can see the cloud just appears in the sky, and we have all sorts of controls over that cloud too. So I think you'll agree, a really nice dynamic sky that you can control, something that really enhances your Vectorworks models when they're over in the Redshift. Now I think that's a really nice image. I'm really happy to capture that, so I'm going to click Create. By the way, if you do want to adjust lighting for all the images together, all you need to do is click Apply Changes across views, and that will do it to all of them. So let's just review a couple of my other views. So when I double click on view 6, it should whiz back to the preset I had. In fact, maybe not. Let's just double click on one of those other views and see if it kind of rewinds to that view. So sometimes, as I say, because of the recalculation of things like the ray tracing, you just need to give it a moment to kind of recalculate all of that wonderful ray tracing global illumination. And I think you can see the refinement process here. Now, the faster the machine you have, obviously the better the quality this will be. I'm on an M4 Max, which is a pretty good machine. But basically, you know, there's even better kind of graphics cards out there now. And that will just mean you get a much smoother frame rate and performance, especially when you're kind of not sharing screen or projecting. But I think you'll agree the quality of that image, very, very nice indeed. So what I might do now is just jump over to my internal views. So to do that then, I could use Vectorworks to do it, obviously by changing over to my internal view. Hopefully, I've actually got some here. So let's sort of just jump over to this view here, see if this was, oh no, that isn't a front view. So what I might do actually, let's pop this over to that side. And with Vectorworks open on that side, let's pop open my tunnel, and you can see I've got a living room view there. So using Vectorworks to navigate, you can see we've got this nice syncing going on here. I just wanted to mention what these white things here are. So if I kind of zoom in a bit here to my view, and let's just sync that with Redshift, you'll notice that these are something called a scatter. So in Vectorworks, we have this option to display those. We don't actually have to display them. I can make them less visible in Vectorworks so they don't influence my model too much, or I can actually just turn them off. There is a preference where I can turn those off as well. But what you'll notice is that scatter is translated over to really beautiful grass in Redshift. Okay, so let's move forward a bit. I want to talk about the asset library. So let's kind of move forward in our model a little bit, and you can see that syncing going on there. So if I do want to, let's just pop Redshift into full screen. I can essentially go to the asset library, which is going to be available on the side panel. So when you click the side panel, you'll notice it's divided up into lots of nice categories. If I go to, for example, plants, for example, you can see there's an absolute ton of different libraries here. Now, this is really nice. You can view the libraries in lots of different ways and search for them. If we go to, for example, let's go to potted plants, got a few here that I've already favorited. So let's just double click and bring in one of those. Let's try this new one. So in order to do that, I can click on the favorite button and basically I can just drag and drop into my model. So first of all, the plant loads as, if you like, a proxy, and then basically that will translate into a very highly detailed object. So now we've got a really nice sort of moving around widget. So we could kind of move that there. And if I do want to copy it, by the way, just hold Control down and drag off another copy. So very easy to do. Now, all of these things can be things like scaled, rotated, and so on as well. So if I do want to make those a little bit bigger or scale them or rotate them, I can do. So you'll now see that those new assets have been added into my Redshift folder. And what you will have noticed is they will have actually gone back into Vectorworks too. Excellent. So let's move forward into the model. I'd like to get inside the project a little bit. So I'm just going to sort of crash through that wall and just kind of navigate into that main space there. Now you can see at the moment the lighting needs a bit of adjustment. So let's go to my environment here and we'll just sort of swing that time of day around. So I think you'll agree that once the lighting kicks in and the denoiser kicks in, the quality of the image is really wonderful. As I say, depending on the graphics card you have, if I had like an RTX graphics card, this would be a bit smoother in terms of the real-time rendering that I would experience as well. So let's basically add a new model. So let's go to my favorites. I've got this lovely dining room table. I think I'll basically just bring that in. Let's select my tool to place that image. And basically, let's just sort of place that into this area here. So you can see that basically the task manager will kind of spring to life if there's any active tasks. And that's okay. So let's move up a little bit into my model. Whoops, went up a tiny bit too much. Let's just pop down. And once my denoiser kicks in, that table should look really, really fantastic. Let's rotate it around. So if I just click onto the whole object, I just want to make sure I've got the entire object selected. So to do that, I can just pop over to my side panel and basically scroll down to my Redshift items. So let me just go up. In fact, I've got those viewports in there. Let's go down to my Redshift objects. And down at the bottom, I should see the new item that I've just added. So here we go, the dining room table. So that means I can select the whole thing, get rid of my active tasks, and I can just easily rotate that around and kind of move it into position. So you can see that I've added this new amazing quality asset for this lovely table. I've got these nice lights as well. And basically I can move around the model, and as soon as the denoiser kicks in, the real brightness kind of comes in once the global illumination activates. So if I did want to save that view, as I say, I've got it here. If I want to refresh it, I can just click on the refresh button to update the thumbnail. So let's say that I want to actually render these views out. So now we can move along to the render tab. And over here, any of the active views that you have will be available. So very, very straightforwardly, all we need to do is run through, choose our final kind of render passes. You can always increase this just for the rendering stage if needed. I'll just do a HD quality render. You can obviously go up to 4K or custom to a very high quality, and you've got all the different image formats you might expect. So let's just render out a frame. And what you'll see as I kind of get progressing is that there's initial kind of processing, and then basically Redshift itself will basically do a progressive rendering. So I think you'll agree, as you kind of zoom in, you can see it's refining and getting better and better and better. That's the beauty of Redshift. Because it's a progressive renderer, using that ray tracing technology, you get a fairly good preview fairly quickly. And basically that will activate, and you can see it's kind of, already looking really, really good, and we're not even quite halfway through yet. So Redshift is a very, very high quality rendering software. It's also very, very quick in terms of rendering, and it does allow this sort of real-time ray tracing in the preview so that you can iterate your designs very effectively. I really love the way that you can change things like the environment, add things like clouds, high quality assets as well, and just basically bring your Vectorworks model to life in no time at all. So if you are interested in trying out Redshift, please reach out and do let me know if I can help with any teaching or training in a bit more detail for you. Okay, so you can see the frame is now rendered. All I need to do if I want to is click Locate Image, and it kindly opens up in my Finder. Here I can double click the image and actually look at the final quality render. Really, really nice image, lots of nice reflections, global illuminations. Look at the reflections and the lighting off this chrome and all these aspects here. Of course, if I was to render this at 4K, I could have done even better. Big contrast though to the Maxon assets and the native Vectorworks assets, which you can see I've just placed those Vectorworks items of furniture there. Of course, I could have replaced those with a little more time. So I really hope you've enjoyed this presentation on ArchViz using Redshift for Vectorworks. I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks so much for watching.